Hi, you guys. We are live right here in the heart of Hollywood at the Miceli's Pizza, and I could not be more excited because I talked to the Miceli brothers about actually hosting my podcast here and having a Hollywood home, and they said, "Kimbro, come on down." So here I am. So to kind of cut the ribbon, if you will, or break the ice for the Pod Brother Nation right here with the PodOwwll podcast, I thought I'd kick it off right with somebody who is long in the tooth in the industry, deep in producing films, music videos, docs. I had the honor of working with him on a film that he produced called, can I say what the film is?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Vienna 1913, shot in New York. And I had the opportunity and honor to be the food service crafty and office production assistant, and it probably was the best thing that I could have done in this phase of my career. And I'm sitting here with the one and only Daniel Solinger. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm lucky to be alive.
You are lucky, man. It's good to be you. I've lived in your world for like almost 8 weeks, and it's like I can testify. It's good to be Daniel.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it is good. Well, first of all, I always just my brother is gone. I'm glad that I'm still walking the earth. I'm healthy. I have a lot of people in this world who love me. My bills are paid. And I've made a lot of movies.
Yeah.
which is a lot of fun. So, I'm very grateful.
Let's go back to the beginning. When you were a kid, did it even dawn on you that you would be making movies or doing music videos or being involved with creating content at all? Because I know some people, they get the bug late in life. Some people, right from the womb, they know what they want to do, and they start putting it in motion to make that happen. When did you first get the sting?
Well, yeah, this is a bit of a story, so I hope you're ready for a story time.
It's a podcast. This is the ribbon cutting in Hollywood, of course.
So no, I did not think so as growing up that this is what I would do with my life. I was a bit of a delinquent child and it caused a lot of trouble. My brother was a drug dealer. I was, worked with him in that, and it caused a lot of problems. Got kicked out of school twice. I got kicked out of one school. They sent me to this other school. I got kicked out of that school, and they sent me to the end of the line was this night school that you had to go to. This was my junior year in high school, and went to the night school, and another kid who had been kicked out of his school he was kicked out of this place called the Fine Arts Center, where you could study all sorts of things, but he was studying film. And it just blew my mind. I was like, you can study film? Like, that's something you can do? Because growing up, I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of TV or movies. Movies were very frowned upon. Like, books were how you get information. Movies were mind-rotting, And so being a delinquent kid, it's like, ooh, I could do something to piss off my parents and study film because they think film is, ridiculous. So I
The rebel gene kicks in.
Exactly. So I applied to the Fine Arts Center. This is in Greenville, South Carolina, and I got in, and I never looked back. I just started making films, started watching films, and I applied and eventually got into NYU Film School. And when I got there, I totally felt like everybody knew so much more than me. I was very late to the game. At that time, I was probably 20. I thought, I'm a 20-year-old wash-up. I'm late to the game.
20-year-old freshman.
Yeah. Like they knew all.
What are you doing here, old man?
They knew all these directors and all this stuff, and I was, I had to take books out of the library to write my essay to get in because I didn't know any directors or their work or anything, But I really had a taste for it. I love, I find even as I get older, I just find I really enjoy the process of telling stories, and being involved in that process and trying to, do everything I can as a producer to enhance the storytelling and make the story as good as possible. So
that's awesome. So can you remember some milestones when you were in college, like learning this? Because it's all fresh and new, and you had this new ambition to learn film. in school, can you remember a couple of milestones where you went, oh, snap? That's how they do that, and then your brain just is on fire, and then you're kind of in that mode. Were there some moments like that in college as you were learning film?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I would have to say there's certain films that when I saw them, I said, "Wow, I want to do this." You know, so in high school, I saw a French film called Children of Paradise that was made like in the 40s, and when I saw that film, it like I realized like filmmaking's an art. You know, like it didn't even occur to me before then, and it just kind of blew my mind. Like this movie Children of Paradise. You know, when I saw, let's say, Apocalypse Now, you know, that's a big one for me. That Lawrence of Arabia. When I saw these movies, you know, it just blew my mind. And it's like, I want to do that. I want to, you know, like how did they do that? If I could just have one movie like that in my whole life, I'll feel, you know, I've done it. You know, like so I'm on a quest to make that perfect movie. You know.
That's awesome. So you felt was producing your first love, your first home, or did you kind of surf around in some of the other departments until you could find where you want to be, you know, directing, producing, acting? Because you were in a couple scenes in the film, so, and you got a great look, got a great voice, so you should be in front of the camera as well as behind.
You know, I don't mind being in front of the camera. It's fun. It's fun to pretend. You know. So yeah, I did. You know, I did try a lot of things. You know, at the time when I first started out, I didn't know if I wanted to be, you know, an actor, a writer, you know, or even a choreographer. My wife laughs because she doesn't see me as like, you know, the dancing type. But I, you know, like I was very serious about it for a minute. And you know, when I went to film school, you know, I think being a director on some things in film school, I kind of realized like, you know what, I don't want everybody coming up to me and asking me what color something should be. It you know, and simultaneously I was already working doing music videos as a production manager, as a producer, and you know, I just had a good aptitude for it, and I was just like, okay, you know, like this feels comfortable for me producing. So by the time I graduated, like my senior year, you could take producing as a class, and I took a producing class at NYU, and you know, by that time, like I was pretty certain that that's what I wanted to do. And what's the great thing about producing is that you interface with all these other departments. So I was very good. Actually, I was very good at lighting and camera work. I won an award for cinematography in college, and you know, I like shaping things with lighting, but you know, I didn't want to be the cameraman for the rest of my life. I didn't want to be, you know, like I wanted to get involved in the writing and the casting and the, you know, like and what's great about producing is you can get involved in all of it, or,
right?
You know, and some producers will just get really, you know, there's some producers that just love the art department and they spend a lot of their time and energy, you know, working with the production designer to make sure that the film looks as good as possible. You know, there's some people who like script or have an eye for talent, acting talent. So, you know, you get to sort of put your focus where you want to as a producer. It's one of the nice things.
Did you, when you started producing, did you dive right into producing things yourself, or did you want to get jobs and be kind of on other people's projects just to kind of learn, or did you just grab the bull by the horns and just start producing right out of school?
I mean, I was pretty lucky. I pretty much started producing even before I graduated. But, you know, this is a crazy business, you know, and as you know, it's like you got to do a lot of things, you know. And so, you know, when I was in NYU, like there was a lot of student peers of mine, you know, who had this attitude like, oh, I won't PA or I won't do this because I'm a director, you know, and, you know, like I'm going to, you know, just focus on my directing until, you know, Warner Brothers calls, you know. And I never had that attitude. I was always like, get me on whatever set, I'll work for free, I'll do, you know, and I've done everything. I mean, I've done craft service, I've done security work, you know, like just anything on a set, you know, like get me on there. And, you know, I tended towards the production stuff and producing. I'm a good AD, you know, I'm very good at that. But you know, like I said, you know, you got a security job on a set. I'm not working. You know, like that was always my priority, is just keep working, build my network, and just keep going. You know,
I've always been like that too, and I find a lot of the fun and you learn the most in a lot of those positions.
It's true,
because you don't have the pressure. Yeah, and sometimes you have the flexibility of your job where you can be a little bit more eyes open, a little bit more ears open to kind of see and learn, even as you're doing kind of like a thing.
Absolutely.
But when you're like, you know, the cinematographer, the director, your eyes in the camera, you don't see anything else. You're just focusing on just what's in there. And the building could be on fire. You wouldn't have a clue.
It's so true.
And I've always loved those types of jobs where you could just kind of just get in, get your put your gloves on, get your boots on, and get your knees dirty, and just like learn from the ground
And I've seen
up.
you do it too. I should have like picked your brain for more information while we were shooting, because like I know all this stuff that I couldn't see because I had my blinders on. I bet you could have told me like a lot of interesting things that would have been helpful.
I could have. I would have loved to have been that guy. Just kind of just like point things out and being like, because I produce and direct myself, and I've manage and direct an entire national promotional tour where I had to handle everything from soup to nuts, tour bus, promo girls, all the stage dates and the bar promotions and the radio promotions. I did all that. And filmmaking is a lot like that, with the logistics and deadlines, and you're covering a lot of ground. I remember when I was on one of my tours, I hired these promotional girls. And we had a cross promotion with Penthouse and Playboy, so they gave us a couple of Penthouse pets and some Playmates, and they fly first class, and they get luxury hotels. They didn't realize like a hardcore rock tour on a bus was about.
Right.
So we all loaded on in New York, and as soon as we crossed the George Washington Bridge, they were like, "Well, when do we check into the hotel? How long are we going to get there?" I'm like, "Have you looked at a map? Like Ohio is like a good." We were going to Iowa actually. We still got another 10-hour drive. Like 10 hours on this thing, and we got 40 more dates. So
right. Wow.
So it was one of those experiences that I bring to film, and it's in my documentary film, like the chapter of my tour, because I did that for 3.5 years, and I worked with a lot of great like alternative bands that at the time were just like on their way up. Nobody really knew about them, and they became their own genre over the decades. But I take that experience to like your set. So there's a lot of logistical things that I did on the tour to make things easy for me, that when I go on any other project, is if it's theater, if it's a film, or if it's a podcast, there's that experience on like, how you can make things a little bit easier, how you can work easier versus smarter versus harder.
It's so important.
Yeah. But next time I'm on your set, I'll definitely be that guy to be an extra
well, you
set
actually
of eyes.
asked you told me that along the way, like, oh, I'm hearing what everybody's saying, and we had a couple of conversations about that. It was good, and it's nice too, like because what it's like to have all that responsibility, and it's nice to, after you go through an experience like that, to be sort of like gear down and do something where you have less responsibility, and you can sort of be more that person that hears what's going on, and
Yeah, well, you feel everybody's pain. When I see you at your desk on your computer and you're just kind of like zoned in, I feel the pain. Whatever's going on, good or bad, I know exactly what you do. And then I look over at the UPM. Maria's like, she's got 4 phones going, and she's got trucks and drivers and stuff. Like I know that job. I know that frustration. And then the guys out on the trucks and even the drivers like dealing with traffic and. It's like everybody, I could just sit back. There's times where I would just sit back in a crafty truck, and I was just looking at everybody, and I'm like, I know your pain, but I also know your glory. I know your pain. I know your glory. It was cool to be in that position on your film, and I love that kind of stuff. I love it. It's, to me, that's why I was put here. Well, comedy was why I was put here, but this type of stuff is kind of in my DNA.
I love that you see their pain and their glory, like to sort of see, like for everybody that they all bring something, like that they are glorious at, and there's the weight that they carry because of whatever their specific circumstance is or whatever is being thrown at them. That's a great perspective.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about your music video experience. What was your first music video?
I don't remember the name of the act. But very early on, I did Can I Kick It by A Tribe Called Quest,
Yeah,
which ended up being a very classic track.
Yeah, they're big. That had to be fun.
Oh my gosh, it was so awesome. Like, first of all, like I was just a huge fan of hip hop. I just love the way the artists would take words and just use them in all these like very interesting and creative ways. And it's so awesome too to be able, because like particularly a Tribe Called Quest, they're using language in a really unique way, and you get to just ask them like, what's this mean, So, I think Fife had a lyric where he's like, you got to run the pigeon, and I was like, what does that even mean?
What
And
does
he's
that
like,
mean?
that means I'm sending a message to somebody, like a
Right.
carrier pigeon,
Sure.
like, and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
and like, so you have to actually get to ask them about the lyrics and find out more information about it. They were just they're fun guys to hang out with, they're just, they're light, like they're, and, one of my favorite memories from Can I Kick It was, because I was a big hip hop head, Jungle Brothers and De La Soul came onto the set, and when we did our lunch break, we played full court basketball, and I got to play full court basketball with Tribe, De La Soul, and Jungle Brothers. It
Wow.
was very cool.
That is very cool. So did you did you actually go on tour with some of these bands, or you just
No,
only
never
focused
tour.
on-
I just do videos. Yeah. I don't know that touring life very well. No.
It's grueling. It's not for everybody.
Oh, I can't.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like film production. I mean,
Yeah.
like film production is not for everybody. And touring is even worse, I think, because you're like completely out of your routine. You're completely away from, all your support network of friends and family, and
Yeah, it's a gradual transition from external support in life and routine to this micro rolling bubble on wheels. And it happens slowly, but at some point you lose touch with the outside world, and your entire focus and your entire world, your ecosystem, is inside that bus.
Your world becomes very small.
And
right?
then the second bubble is where you land and the people who you're interacting from when you get off the bus.
Right.
But there is no third layer.
Right. And I don't know if I'm sure you experienced this, but for me, doing a distant location, like for the last movie was a distant location for me. I live in Los Angeles. We were shooting in New York. Like, I don't even know how to put it. It's just like I get so untethered, like I come back and like my bank account's a mess, like my relationship, it takes a lot of work to get it sort of like back into working order, my relationship with my daughter, like it all just sort of like comes unglued, and you have to come back and glue it all back together again,
You know that Snickers commercial a few years ago with Sherrod Small, who is Chris Rock's cousin, Tony Rock's cousin. Tony Rock's a comedian I worked at my comedy club, which is also part of my story in New York. But Sherrod Small did a Snickers commercial where he walks out on stage and he's like, thank you very much, Cleveland, I love you. And then you hear somebody in the back like, we're in Chicago. He stands there like, got a Snicker moment. He's like, that's how it is on tour. That the reason why that is so funny, especially to entertainers, tour people, but because that's exactly what happened. You get to the point to where you have no clue where you are, and you literally have to put a sign over the door when you come out what city that you're on, so that you know that, okay, Atlanta, you're in Atlanta, or you're in Cleveland, or you're in Cincinnati.
And which door would you put that on?
The bus, when you get off the bus.
Right. So there'd be a sign as you're getting off the bus that would say what city you're in.
What city you're in.
That's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah.
I can see that being an issue.
Yeah, because you were I mean, a lot of the people aren't geographically inept anyway.
Right.
So they would know what city from what city anyway. But yeah, we would have to do that.
Wow.
'Cause you would completely lose track of where you were. And I think that's kind of it's kind of a protective mechanism too, because you're out on the road, there's a lot of danger out there, there's a lot of strangers out there, and you really need to get dialed into your ecosystem on that bus to create some harmony. And because you're in close quarters, so
yeah, I imagine that's got to be tough.
You have to you get on a bus
like no
with
privacy.
somebody. You don't have privacy. You give up your privacy with each other, and there's a certain amount of concessions that you make with each other with your privacy, and you all become one kind of private unit. What happens on the bus stays on the bus. For a lot of people, for some people it doesn't. But it was an incredible world, and being a touring comedian on my own, I'd carpool with another comedian from city to city here or there. But once I got on that bus, it was a completely different world that I learned. And lucky for me, I had that road warrior experience that I could bring to the tour bus, which was I think that's why they hired me for the thing in the first place. But yeah, it was a pretty interesting experience, and I can't wait to kind of dive into that chapter of my documentary film to cover that, because I'm going to reach out to those bands, I'm going to reach out to those playmates and Penthouse Pets and all the venues.
It'll be interesting to find out. I don't know how long it's been, but what's transpired since the last time since they were on the bus.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot that has gone.
Everybody, every single person is probably different in some major way.
This was 90. Let's see. I did that tour from like 97 through 2001. So I was out there with like 8 different bands. These were 40-day tours. So.
Right. Wow.
So there was a lot. There's a lot there. So it'll be interesting.
Now, when you say 40 dates, was that consecutive 40 days, or was that 40 dates over the course of maybe like 4 months or whatever? 40
dates over the course of like 2 to 3 months.
Right. Okay.
Because we would have some days off in between some of those. They weren't real long because I remember I stayed on the bus the entire time. Because for me, there was just so much to do in between each city and between each thing. Those days off were an opportunity for me to catch up. Had the whole bus to myself. Right. Everybody went home for like 3 or 4 days, and I could just catch up. Me and the driver, we could just go like, where you want to go? It's like, we're on a bus. We can go anywhere. We got everything we need. So we would have these 2 or 3 day excursions once we let everybody off. But then when they got back on, then we were back. Usually it was like... It determined on the distance between the city. So like through the Midwest, we would do like maybe 4 shows in a row. We would do like, maybe Wisconsin and Indiana and Illinois and Iowa. But then Iowa, we would have to jump to Vegas or something.
Right. So you'd have several days.
There might be a day or 2 or 3 where we could just take our time getting to Vegas, so we don't have to hurt ourselves.
Right.
So it was like that. It was kind of designed like that. But it was fun. So your first film. So you're doing music videos, and then you rolled into film. You remember what your first film was that you produced?
Yeah, well, my first, I did a documentary film called Rhyme and Reason on hip hop because I was doing all these hip hop videos, and when I was doing the hip hop videos,
that makes sense. That's a nice transition.
Yeah,
because you got knowledge now, and you got connections, and you kind of know the vibe and the culture a little bit.
Exactly, and what was happening on the music videos is that I would go and do a music video for a hip hop artist, and they would be like, okay, I want you to shoot on my block, and I want to bring all my friends, and it just so many times I'd be on the video and say, what you really want is a documentary, like what you really want is a documentary. You want us to just document the way you live your life, but we were making music videos, so I was like. When a friend of mine came to me and said, hey, I'm thinking of doing a hip-hop documentary, and none existed at the time, I was like, that's a great idea. Like these, the artists already are trying to get like their life, their lifestyle documented, and so that was very easy transition. And I had like connections in the hip hop world, and was able to get a lot of artists into the movie. And so my first movie was a documentary. My first narrative movie was a movie that I'm sure you can't even see, called April V. It was about a woman who had a lobster boat up in Maine, and we shot up in Maine. So that was the first narrative feature film that I shot.
I did comedy up in Maine quite a bit when I lived in Boston for 5 years. There were some one-nighters, and there was a comedy club up there called the Boston Comedy Connection. I think was in Portland, Maine, and great comedy audiences up there. Man, they were pretty easy. It was fun to go up there. But so you did a film up in Maine. Was like one of your first films. When you pick a film to produce, how do you do it? Do you like find the script first? Do you get the director first? Do you have an idea, or do you have kind of a topic that you want to go into, and then you find something that you want to do, or are you kind of on a list of directors and writers can call and like hire you to produce their stuff, and if you like the project, then you'll produce it.
Right. That's pretty much more the latter. You know, I sort of evaluate my projects on a few items. You know, budget, like how much I'm getting paid, how much is the budget for the movie. You know, schedule, does it fit into my schedule? But the last and most important one is, do I really like these people that I'm about to make a film with? You know, even before like the script and the quality of the script and the content or what cast is attached, it's really like I really try to take a hard look at the people that I'm going to, you know, let's say the director, I'm a producer, you know, the producer-director relationship's really important, or if there's other producers, you know, like I really try to get a sense from the other producers. It's like, you know, if we're going to spend 2 years in the trenches together, like, am I going to hate you at the end of it, or am I going to love you? And if I feel like, you know, I could probably love them, you know, then I'll take the job. You know, that's really the biggest item is really the people that I'm going to be working with, you know?
That's funny that you say that. That's kind of the same barometer that I have. You know, being a comic, if I got teamed up, especially to do like a stretch or a string of dates, and a lot of times we had to carpool, if I didn't like you, if I didn't get a good vibe, we weren't working together, you know, because we're going to be in a car.
Right, exactly.
For 20 hours a day. We're probably going to, like, you know, share a room. We're going to split some stuff. You know, we got to work together. We got to travel together. It's, you know, this is like 3 weeks on the road. Do I really want to, you know, spend 3 weeks in a car with this knucklehead? Or
right. So it could
who,
even be like, you know, if you had to choose between, let's say, a, you know, more famous or successful comedian, you know, who you know, like, oh, this guy is a jerk, and I'm not going to want to spend a lot of time with them, or somebody who's lesser known, and you know, you just, you know, that their personality fits with yours, you know, like which would you choose?
Yeah, you know, personality, because I've worked with a lot of famous people who aren't the coolest people, and they aren't the funnest, and they aren't the most compatible for my frequency. So, for me, we gotta groove,
right?
Because it's the stuff that is. The journey has to be just as fun as the juice we get on stage. Because that's where the gold dust is. The gold is on stage.
Right.
The end of the rainbow for a comic is the microphone on stage. But the gold dust is getting to the mic.
Right.
And you can collect a lot of gold. You can collect more gold dust than the gold you get on stage in a lot of cases. So I've been on tours with comics where the pay really sucked, but the audiences were great, and the areas that we went to were amazing. But the time we spent and the laughs we had and the moments were priceless.
Yep, definitely.
So for me, it's we got a groove. Now I've been forced by agent or a booker for whatever reason to, like, okay, you guys have to travel because this is the show, and then I've been professional enough to, okay, I get paid, I'm doing the thing, I got to travel, work with this person, whatever. I've been cool and professional, but if I had a choice, it would be the group.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
So, how do you feel about, like, accolades and awards? You know, I get a lot of mixed feelings from a lot of people who are just like, that's just, you know, the hype, the politics. You got to know it's all the schmoozing and this and that, and it's never based on this. But at the same time, there's a school that's like, to be recognized by your peers or any jury for your accomplishment is pretty cool. I'm a person who produces drive-in film festivals from the pandemic simply because the kind of world kind of pushed us that way, and I had been working in outdoor drive-in movie theaters for 15 years, and so I was like, I might as well just own my own, and just since I'm in the industry and I do a lot of my own events, I might as well just come up with my own. And what's your take on, like, award shows and awards for accolades, film festivals? What's your take on that?
Gosh, I'm having a lot of different thoughts. I mean, you know, it depends. I mean, like, objectively, I would say that, you know, they're cool. The awards are good. You know, I think that, yes, you know, it's not enough to make a good movie, that you also have to, there's a lot of marketing that goes on to, you know, the Oscars, but even just any individual film festival. You know, like, I did this movie last year called, gosh. I did a movie last year called America's Family that premiered at the Dances with Film Festivals here in Hollywood, and we won the Audience Award and we won the Jury Grand Prize. But part of the reason we won that is because the director showed up for everything. Was at every event, went and saw other people's movies. Was a very, very active participant in the festival at large. And I think so. Even for a film festival, it takes a certain amount of networking and schmoozing, and to be, in my opinion, to get the awards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's just. But you have to start off with a good film, I think. And then you have to do all that in addition to that if you want those accolades, if you want those awards. Now, so that's a little bit more objectively. Subjectively, I hate that there's all these clubs that I'm not. They won't let me in, there's some festivals.
You're not part of the cool kids.
Not part of the cool kids. Yeah, there's some festivals out there that I've never been accepted to, no matter how many times I've entered, and it drives me a little crazy. But there's other festivals that I'm part of their family, and I love that, But but it does kind of feel like, and all the agencies and the studios and the streamers, they're all like these clubs that you feel like you have to bribe the doorman to get into.
Have you ever been invited to be on a jury of a film festival?
I don't believe so. No.
So if you were invited to be a jury on a film festival, what would you look for in a film? Maybe you might have 20 boxes that you check, or maybe there's just one specific thing or two specific things that you're like, okay, if I see these, I'm definitely going to give you some good marks and maybe pass you on for selection. Have you given thought about what, as a producer, now that you're in the game, in the trenches, you know the hand-to-hand combat, you know the failures, you know the successes, and now you get a chance to be like, all right, I know what I'm looking for. What would those things be if you were on
That's
a jury?
A really good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that before. When I read a script, what I really look hard at is the dialogue. If somebody's writing interesting dialogue, that's how I sort of evaluate the script. So I would take a similar approach to being a judge, except for I would expand it. If I'm evaluating, the writing award, definitely I'd be looking at the dialogue. If I'm evaluating for the director, I would be looking at their coverage. Where they place the camera. If I'm evaluating the actors, I would look for people who feel natural or make really interesting choices. So I guess and then if I was looking for a film overall, I would look at all those things, and as a group, and that would probably weigh in on my decision. Now, I mean, it'd be tough to be a jury person for a film festival because everybody has their tastes, I tend towards, let's say action films. I like action films, and so that's not to say that some comedy or whatever isn't as worthy, but I just prefer action films. So I think it would be tough to be a jury on a film festival. I think that'd be a lot of responsibility in a lot of ways, to sort of tack against my biases,
Yeah, that's the same kind of answer that I would give and have given when people ask me about judging a comedy contest. It's very hard to who's funnier than who, but if you kind of hone into, all right, how many laughs are they getting per minute, and how boisterous are those laughs? What is the material on? Is it self-deprecating? Is it projected on somebody else? Is it clever? Is it clean? Is it creative? Is it provocative? Is it political? Is it religious? Is it sexual? There's all these kind of parameters that, depending on what the festival or the contest is looking for, I kind of work within that. But as a comedian and doing it and knowing what makes me laugh and knowing what I need to do to make people laugh, I have kind of that blueprint back seat of how to dissect what's funny, who's the joke on, how you're presenting it, your face, your voice, your body language. All of those tools go into that one moment of making people laugh. And when I see those, then you get higher marks for me. And a lot of people, they're like, oh, if you make a comedian laugh, that means you're really funny. And that could be true, but a lot of times there's stuff that is extremely funny to a comedian, but it's not ha-ha funny, where they just don't laugh.
I was thinking if you made a comedian laugh, you probably said something really filthy that would offend everybody else.
Yeah, because they like the super. Yes,
I would say if you could make a comedian laugh, you probably said something extremely offensive,
really super offensive. A lot of the inside jokes with comedians you can't be repeated anywhere.
Right.
But that is true. So let's kind of fast forward the tape to where you are right now. So you've got like an amazing footprint in film and in the industry, and you're doing some amazing things. Where do you see yourself like next? Like, what's your next milestone that you want to hit? Because you're on a pretty high plateau in Hollywood right now doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Like I mean, to sit where you sit, like that is a pretty good place to be. It's a pretty good accomplishment. You worked your ass off to get there, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah.
But what's the next milestone for you?
Well, I have a lot of, I guess, short-term milestones. I mean, like I like to work. I'd like to, expand, and try to do more with more. I'd like to have more resources, more. I do a lot of projects, but to be able to have more support to take on an even larger number of projects, and what I guess ultimately for me the goal is to be financially secure enough that I don't have to take any job just for the money. That every decision is purely based on material and people and material.
That's a great milestone.
Yeah, that would be the next milestone. It's just like that I don't have to take anything for any other reason than I really like the people and the project. Yeah.
If time and money and resource were no issue, who would you love to work with that you haven't worked with, but that just, if you could produce this person in one of your projects, you would be like, yeah.
Yeah, there's so many of them, but I guess the first one that comes to mind is Wes Anderson. I would love to do a Wes Anderson movie. I'd love to do, I don't know if I'd like working with him as a person, but just sort of the size and scope of like a Michael Bay movie, just like really full on big time action. Obviously like Spielberg and Scorsese, like people at that level. Like, yeah, I'm looking forward to working with people like that.
That's awesome. My go-to is Denzel Washington, The Rock, Arnold Schwarzenegger.
There you go.
If I could have all three of them in my film, that right there is a grand slam for me.
That would be an incredible movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my wish list right there. And if I get to the point to where I have more money than I know what to do with, I'm going to call all three of them, and I'm going to be like, look, I got an idea.
For a movie.
For an action comedy. You guys would kill it. So what advice would you give people coming up, getting into the business, right off the Greyhound bus?
Just throw your both feet in, your whole body in. Just throw your whole body in. Do as much as you can, meet as many people as you can. And if you're young and you're single and you don't have a lot of overhead, like work for free, work for little pay, just like throw yourself in as hard as you can, because the more you throw yourself in, the quicker you'll make your network of people that will sustain you throughout the rest of your career.
Mm-hmm. That's some very, very good advice, and that's kind of what I did in the comedy. I did all these hundreds of open mics. I drove thousands of miles just to get on stage and met some incredible people, which later on were connections and assets in my career and leveling up and reaching some milestones. So that's some really good advice. I don't want to keep you too long. We can always do a to be continued.
All right.
But before we leave, I have a couple more questions here. I want to throw by you. When you're looking to like. When you're looking to make your professional career and your family career work, because this is a huge sacrifice for anybody to get in this industry, be successful, and then have the support group of their family. I have noticed in the industry where people, whether you're a comedian, a singer, a celebrity, actor, producer, director, whatever, if you have that family unity that somehow like gravitates to supporting what you need to do, those family bonds become incredibly strong, incredibly tight, and that person's success is obvious. What advice would you give people to balance or to create a strategy where going for your dream, which is incredibly demanding, and figuring out how to get your family to support that dream? What advice would you give somebody or some people who, like, all right, you have talent, you have the willingness to work, you have the ambition. It's clear that you're doing all the things you said earlier that can help build your career.
Right.
But now you're in a relationship or you have a family and you're trying to make that balance. What tips would you give somebody to make that balance? And obviously everybody's different, everybody's family's different, everybody's
Right.
culture's different, everybody's economic status is different, but there's always one or two things that applies across the board to all of those as a good tip.
Right.
What would that be, in your opinion?
Yeah, when I met my wife, who I've been married to for 20 years now, it was much earlier in my career, and I think I said something to her, like, basically, like, you're more important to me than making movies. And she was like, really? Because I don't really feel that. Like, I don't get that. I feel like you're making your movies as your top priority in your life, And I had to take a deep, hard look at myself, and I realized, like, you know what? I do need to prioritize my wife and now my daughter over the filmmaking. That movies come and go. My daughter's only going to be 7 once, and to really kind of keep that at the forefront of my mind, And so, making those priorities has been important to me. Now, in this last movie, I was able to bring my daughter to set for 3 days, Like, whenever I can integrate the two, like, I feel like that, that's the best way to do it, is to be able to work and have my daughter around,
And she's so cute, and she's charming. She, like, stole everybody's heart.
Yeah, she's awesome. She's a really amazing person. But I think understanding those priorities is important. I couldn't have done that early in my career. The first decade of my career, it had to be heads down. Working, like, weekends and holidays is when I'm going to get ahead. It's not the time to, like, and, and the relationships I had during that time, didn't survive, I think, for a reason. But once, I had that base, that the resume was a little thicker, and I met my wife, like, I realized, like, because it's like you always hear these stories, like Steve Jobs on his deathbed. It's like, it's not the money that he's thinking about. It's the connection with the people, and how he wished he had more connection. Or, it's like, I think at the end of the day, that's what you're going to regret. Is you're never going to regret, like, oh, I should have worked harder. You're going to regret not spending more time with your family and not, being more connected with other people. So I try to keep that clear in my mind, even when I'm really going after chasing my dream and working hard.
That's awesome. So my last couple questions here. What can you tell us about Vienna 13? Because we're in post-production now.
Right. All I could do is point people to the website, which I think is Vienna13 Vienna1913.com, and maybe it's Vienna1913themovie.com, and there's a newsletter that will be going out with updates. I don't feel comfortable yet because we really haven't come up with a publicity strategy to like talk about the specifics of the movie or the plot or any of that stuff, not publicly at least. And but it's going to be a very interesting movie, and it came out very well from the production of it, and I'm very excited about it.
I am too.
Really excited about
I'm
it.
very excited about it. I got to be a background in one scene, so hopefully it doesn't make the cutting room floor.
Well, no promises. No promises.
No promises. What strategies or ideas do you have for film festivals that you want to submit this to?
I mean, this one, I very specifically think that we'll premiere at Tribeca for a variety of reasons. Yeah, that's Tribeca in July is really my sort of laser focus at the moment. Yeah, and then I've been talking to a high-profile sales agent that I believe, if we get into Tribeca, they'll make the sale at the festival.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to drop a little bug in your ear. Maybe the Pod Brother can do a media booth in Tribeca, and then it's all about Vienna 1913.
All right, I love that idea. Yeah.
We can have a huge poster, and everybody that I interview sits in front of our poster.
Nice.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, like I said, we're coming up with a whole publicity strategy. We'll get a publicist on board, and then there's a whole science to what you say when to whom and how it's rolled out.
Yeah.
Like
it's
actually
a strategy.
For what you're talking about is probably better for the general release than the festival release. The festival,
right.
When you release at a film festival, there's a very specific goals that you have. Like you really basically want to hype the film up to this very small community of buyers.
Right.
So whatever publicity you do is really just laser focused on what's going to make the buyers hungry for what you're selling. Then once you have a buyer and you're coming out, then of course their publicity team gets involved as well, and then you plan the general rollout where your audience is very different, where you're trying to appeal to a much broader audience.
Maybe we should put a list of buyers that I could interview on the podcast at the Media Lounge.
A list of buyers okay. It's a great idea, actually, but the reality is, especially these days since COVID, like the buyers aren't actually going to be there at the festival.
Sure, yeah.
In most likelihood, some may, but it's unlikely that they'll be physically there.
We could zoom them in.
We
could zoom them in. Yeah, I got all the bases covered. If you're not there, I still can get an interview with you via Zoom. So I'm not, I got that covered. So
yeah, let me roll that around.
Yeah,
it's an innovative strategy that I had to roll around my head a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's fun. So where can we find you? I know we can find you on IMDb.
Right.
You've got a lot of great.
I have a website, danielsolinger.com. I'm on all the social media. My main platform is TikTok. I'm at Producer Daniel, and I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. I have a fan page on Facebook and LinkedIn if you want.
Anybody who wants to be a production assistant on one of your projects, how can they approach you? Is there a website they go to, an email?
They can go to my website and email me through the website. I would say, anybody who's looking to work, not just with me or anybody else, if you have a specific person you're trying to work with, the main thing is the follow-up. It's all nice and good to send a resume, but the way I got my first job is I wanted to work at this film studio in downtown Manhattan, and I would call them every Monday morning. I'll come and sweep your floors. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to work at your film studio. And, of course, the first time I called, they didn't have any open positions, But I kept calling every week, and I think it took about 2 months. And then after 2 months, like, oh, yeah, so-and-so just quit, or like we just, we have an opening. Why don't you come down and let's meet you, And so I'd say that follow-up is really important. And there's another short story I'll tell about, a guy who was a grip who wanted to be a UPM. And he would call me once a month, and the first time he called me, I didn't have anything. But after about 9 months, I was like, you know what? I have this little thing. I need a UPM. You're welcome to give it. You come give it a shot. So it's the follow up that's really important.
That's awesome. That's great advice. All right. Thank you very much, man. I really
It's my
appreciate
pleasure.
you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. Thanks.
So, and I'm going to have you back. The next time I have you, I think we'll dive into a little bit more technical questions about different departments.
All right. Well,
and we'll kind of tap your brain on that.
Sounds good to me.
Thank you, man. You guys, thanks for hanging out. And come down to Miceli's here. They've got great food. They have been here since 1947. There have been a serious amount of film shot here and commercials and TV series, and we're going to actually dig up some of those shows and invite some of the writers, producers, directors, actors to come down and do some interviews right here at Miceli's for a site location that was in that film project. So I'm going to be inviting more producers and directors and writers and actors and obviously comedians. So thanks for hanging out with me. I am the Pod Brother. You can find me and all things funny at thepodbrother.com. This show will be streamed on podbrothernation.com. And if you guys want to know more about film industry and how you can learn how to do stand-up or get involved with this film or entertainment, check out my academy, pnnacademy.com, and we maybe might can teach you some stuff. I don't know. We'll see. Daniel, thank you.
All right. Thank you.